Yeah, just allow. Give
Okay,
that.
thank you. ॐ आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्तिः 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 ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्तिः 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 Welcome to the concluding class, and which is going to be a summary of chapter 4 and also some things that we can take away from this Upanishad. And so I'm just going to open this text which we have. One second. I'm not able to locate it immediately. I just had it here. It is wonderful. Yeah. So, as I said, the fourth chapter, the final chapter, starts with the with Haimavati Uma as Brahma Vidya, unfolding the fact that you all, you all means you Devas, forgot all about Brahman Ishvara. Brahman here is Ishvara. Without Ishvara, you cannot lift a finger, you cannot do anything. And your victory was because Ishvara in the form of Karma Phala Data helped you, the grace of Ishvara helped you, and Ishvara as Brahman uplifted and what is that, manifested your karmendriyas and jnanendriyas in order for you to be able to effectively have this victory. And Indra got this knowledge, and that's why this is called a thunderbolt for Lord Indra, because the Upanishad says the Yaksha appeared like a thunder, like a lightning, and lightning is here now and gone tomorrow. And Indra's Ayudha, Indra being the Adhishthana Devata of the mind and the buddhi, he is very quick, and here the Yaksha was quicker than him, ironically. And the Yaksha comes as a thunderbolt. Very, very interesting. As a bolt from the blue, as a bolt of lightning, which you cannot really see with your naked eye. That's why you cannot see Brahman. Brahman here is like a bolt of lightning symbolized by the Yaksha. So here he could not see it. You cannot see lightning without getting blinded. I mean, you can look at it from a distance behind some thunder clouds and then it is okay. But face to face with it, it's like a fire. It's just a, it's like electricity. It's not a small thing. And so when you look at the description of the Yaksha in Adi Shankara's Bhashya, Yaksha is also depicted as a bolt of lightning. It's interesting because this was uh, Indra's weapon called Vajra, which is a bolt of lightning. And here he used to keep on dropping Vajra and punishing so many people and going about it. And isn't it interesting that Vajra that he could command, he had that same orientation towards Brahman, and Brahman comes as that same bolt of lightning in the form of Yaksha, and he cannot even command, he cannot even have a conversation because there the mind cannot go. The mind cannot go there. And the mind cannot go there, neither can can speech. And that's why Agni could not find out who this Yaksha is. Agni could not find out who this Yaksha is. And then Vayu, the sense of touch, said ouch, and came back running from the Yaksha. And then everything, all these devatas, they were able to see Yaksha, but they were not able to understand the Swarupa of the Yaksha, because the Swarupa of the Yaksha is in fact their own Swarupa. So the fourth chapter really decodes this story through a few verses, which I'm just summarizing because we are not going to look at them in detail in this short time. So I'm just summarizing this the message of this story. So Vayu wanted to grasp the Yaksha as an object, and then instead of going and saying this is I, what did Agni do? Agni asked, who are you? Again the speech and the mind, he wanted to objectify the Yaksha. Same thing, Vayu also wanted to ask, who are you? But the Yaksha did a karate move, and what did he say? Don't ask me who you are without knowing yourself. If you knew yourself, you would not be asking the question, because you would recognize me as the truth of you. But obviously you cannot recognize me as the truth of you. That means what? You don't know yourself. So I better help you out and give you a little hint. And what is the hint? Who are you? And even then they didn't get it. They went to some they went to some very basic, shallow level of describing themselves from the standpoint of the ahankara, their own glories, from the standpoint of their body, from the standpoint of what they do and what all they have done. I move through space, I am the hurricane, I am this. Actually, he should have just said Kane, because he forgot all about Hari. There was no Ishvara in it, Yeah. That's why I always say the spelling of hurricane should be changed to Hari came. Okay, yeah, that is what it is. It is all Bhagavan. And so, really, and so here, Vayu could not know who it was, because Vayu did not know himself. And Agni could not know who it was, because speech cannot go there. Yad vacha anabhyuditam yena vag abhyudhyate. And then Vayu cannot go there because he wanted to touch the Yaksha. Yaksha cannot be touched. In fact, that which blesses the sense of touch is Yaksha. And then, of course, at least these two fellows had some kind of a transaction. Indra, symbolizing the mind and the buddhi, could not even saw Yaksha as a flash of lightning, and like a flash of lightning, Yaksha disappears. Very, very interesting. And so this is something so beautiful. This is something to, when you decode this story, it is rife with so many metaphorical meanings. It's not even a story. In fact, it's an allegory for this knowledge. That Brahman is an object of curiosity. It's an object of attraction. And it is not available for transaction, even though Brahman here has come as Ishvara, still not available for transaction for the mind or for the speech. And that's why it disappears. It entirely disappears from view, and then Indra has to surrender. The mind and the buddhi have to surrender. And we saw this in one of the earlier classes, that they have to come through the back door as hired help in the service of this knowledge, not as an agent of this knowledge. The knowledge has no agent. The knowledge is not that, the knowledge simply is you. The knowledge has no agent because it is not a product. If it were a product, then it would have an agent. Who is the maker of this? There is no maker. It is not a product, so the knowledge is entirely and totally free of an agent. And the knowledge is not something that has a beginning, that has an end. It is you. And so this has to be understood. And the second message of this story is that no matter how exalted you are, no matter what your accomplishments, you may be a deva in the celestial realm, but you still have to understand this knowledge in order to be free of samsara. Even the devas had the pressure to say, I scared away this fellow, I did this is my victory, this is my glory. It is very, very interesting. So interesting. And where did that pressure come from? Why did they forgot all of? They should have taken the victory as Ishvara Prasada, that because of the grace of Ishvara, this victory is there. They forgot all about Ishvara. They forgot all about Brahman that powers the mind, etc. They forgot about Ishvara as Karma Phala Data. Nothing they remembered. And then as a result, what happened? They just had a lot of they had a lot of learning to do. They had to quickly learn the truth of the yaksha. And then this is what is pointed out. And in the fourth chapter, all this is pointed out, and Haimavati Uma even says that you just forgot all about Brahman as Ishvara, and then you should actually give this glory back to Brahman, because it is not your glory. It is really not your glory. And for this glory, there were so many things that had to come together to make this glory happen. And so really speaking, it's not your glory. And then, it says, Tasmadva ete devaha atitaram iva anyad devan anyat agnirvayu indraha te hi enat nedishtam pasparshuhu hi enat prathamo vidan chakara brahma iti. So the Upanishad says these devas, Agni, Vayu, Indra, therefore much excel others because they came very close to Ishvara as the Yaksha. They came to know who this Brahman is first. And then out of these three devas, Indra excels more than the other two devas because he approached Brahman and he was taught directly by Haimavati Uma. And then there are certain illustrations given in the Upanishads, and they are very esoteric and they have to really be understood properly. So we will be looking at these two illustrations here given to assimilate this knowledge that we have studied at a deeper level. So verse number 29. Tasyaisha adeshah yadetad vidyuto vyadyutada iti nyamimishada ityadhi daivam. So remember, in the last class we talked about the threefold distinction or the standpoint from which Ishvara is seen. Adhideva, that which is centered on Bhagavan itself and in the laws of the universe, the one who gives the laws of the universe. And then Adhi Bhuta, Adhi Bhautika, centered on the elements, and Adhyatma, centered on the individual body, mind, sense complex. And so since the story was illustrating all this Adhyatma, Adhideva, Adhibhuta, then the lessons of the story are also going to somehow very neatly go into that same categorization. So first teaching that is given is Iti Adhidaivatam. So on the level of Adhideva, what is the lesson here? What is the illustration? That it flashed like lightning. Eshaha Adeshaha, this is the lesson. Yadet, and then there is a Plutaswara. Same thing you find in the Taittiriya Upanishad also. Kaschana gacchati. There it is in the form of a question. Here the Plutaswara is to show the illustration. It is as though, like even. Like even what? It is as though flashing like lightning. It appeared and disappeared in the blink of an eye. This is Brahman with respect to the what is called Adhideva. So this is, so how is it Adhideva? It is Adhideva because you go back to the story again, that the Yaksha appeared like a bolt of lightning, and then what did the Yaksha do? Just mingled there for a while and then disappeared. As soon as they wanted to know, it disappeared. As wanted to know as something other than themselves, it disappeared, because that Yaksha was Deva himself. Adhideva means Bhagavan himself, because of whose prasada the victory was got, because of whose prasada the eyes function, because of whom everything functions, because of whose existence one can say one exists. And so therefore this is, this, if this is not understood, here there is a kind of a caveat. If this is not properly understood, it goes away in the wink of an eye. So the teaching is so beautiful, so simple and so immediate. For the mind that is ready, it is assimilated. For the mind that is not ready, you're like, what hit me? What is this? Okay, it's gone. By the time you try to catch it as an object, the more you try to catch it as an object, it is gone. Like even the wink, a blink of the eye. And again, lightning cannot be met face to face. We already saw that. That's the next, that is the next lesson here. And so therefore, when the lightning comes, even Indra would be forced to close his eyes. Close his eyes, because it is, the eyes will just shut on their own, because they cannot face this blinding light, which is nothing other than that which is you, which cannot be objectified by the eyes. Yena chakshushana pashyati, yena chakshumshi pashyanti. That which is not an object of sight, that because of which the eyes see. This lightning, like Brahman, this is how to assimilate this knowledge a little deeper. And then what? Atha adhyatmam. Now to take it on the personal level, then he says, yadetad gacchati va cha manaha anena chaitad upasmarati abhikshanam sankalpaha. The next illustration is the Atma that obtains, the I-ness that obtains in the body-mind sense complex. And it says that, it speedily goes to Brahman. Speedily goes to Brahman means what? It is never away from Brahman. Wherever it goes, there is Brahman. So we cannot take this literally. This is an illustration. So how does the mind go to Brahman? You expose yourself to Brahma Vidya, you are right there. And then let's say somebody gets disappointed by Vedanta. It's not possible, but they get disappointed by other reasons, but they transfer it on to Vedanta and say, Vedanta is not doing anything for me. Vedanta has frustrated me. I have been studying for so long and I really don't have anything here. So the one who says that, then for that person, this teaching is very interesting, because the person stops attending class. I'm going to go away from Brahman. Brahman says, where will you go? Away is Brahman, above is Brahman, below is Brahman, on this side is Brahman, on that side is Brahman, here a Brahman, there a Brahman, everywhere Brahman, Brahman. What are you going to do? So it's actually a very interesting meditation to say, I'm getting away from Ishvara, I'm getting away from Brahman. You will see the futility of it. It's a very interesting contemplation. So here, the speed of the mind, manojava, the speed of the mind means the mind can go everywhere, and the mind effortlessly goes to Brahman, because wherever the mind goes, yatra yatra mano yati, tatra tatra samadhayah, wherever the mind goes, there alone is oneness. So beautiful. Very, very nice. And so this is Adhyatma, this is how to own up this knowledge. From the standpoint of Adhideva, we saw that it's like a flash of lightning, cannot be, it's as though it's like a flash of lightning, cannot be directly seen, much less understood as an object, and then assimilating it in the space of my heart. I have to abhikshna sankalpa, repeatedly contemplate on the fact that there is no getting away from this. Wherever the mind goes, whatever the mind sees, whatever it thinks of is Brahman alone. Thinker, Brahman. Thought, Brahman. Means of knowledge, Brahman. Okay, whatever I ask, the answer is Brahman. And then whatever the mind doesn't think of, Brahman. Whatever the mind likes, Brahman. Ragas, Brahman. Dvesha, Brahman. Then if raga dveshas are Brahman, why should I get rid of them? I'm not saying we should get rid of them. Neutralize their hold. You be in the driver's seat. Neutralize their hold on your pursuits. That's what I'm saying. Manage them. We don't talk of mind control for this reason. We don't talk of, desire control. Nothing to control. You manage them. You don't get hijacked by them. You be free enough to have the desire. Do not give the freedom to the desire to have you. Otherwise you will be had. This is what happens. And so therefore, this in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says the mind as though contemplates, and the person seriously shuts the eyes and says, I'm meditating now, don't disturb me, I'm in this meditation mode. And the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Dhyayati iva, as though going towards itself. And then suddenly the doorbell rings, something happens, one is distracted. Lelayati iva, as though distracted. No distraction. Where is the distraction? Because if everything is Brahman, where is the distraction? Where is the problem? There is no distraction. There is no, focus, as though focused, as though distraction. And so therefore, this is something which is very, very beautiful. So Adhyatma and Adhideva kind of lessons are given. And then there is a very beautiful verse. And this one is verse 31. Tadha tadvanannama tadvanam ityupasitavyam saya etadevam vadema saya etadevam vedabhihi hainam sarvani bhutani samvanchanti. Very beautiful verse and a very, very deep verse. So what does this say? This says that this Brahman, even though it doesn't say Adhibhuta, I suppose it can be taken here as a Adhibhuta lesson, even though it doesn't say that. And I'll tell you why after we discuss this verse. So, now, Tadha, this indeed, this Brahman, Prakritam Brahma, this Brahman that is under discussion, Tadvanam Nama iti upasitavyam, should be meditated upon, should be actually worshipped here. Worshipped here with a particular name. This Brahman should be worshipped by all. Brahman here is Ishvara. So, this Ishvara should be worshipped by all, and therefore it is called Tadvana. Vana here is short form for Vananiyam. Vananiyam means that which is worshipful. Pujaniyam ityarthaha. So this is Vananiyam, Pujaniyam. This is the most worshipful, most exalted thing. This Ishvara must be worshipped by all. And then Upasitavyam, Saya Eta Devam, because it is in the Veda, in through the Vedas, it is well known and beloved. This Ishvara is beloved through the Vedas and must be worshipped through a particular name. What is that name? The most loved and the most worshipful one. Vananiyam also means Varenyam, brings to mind the Gayatri mantra. Varenyam, the chosen one, the one that should be selected. Because otherwise what? That's why this is adhibhuta. This can be understood, because otherwise what else? Where else are we worshipful? We are worshipful towards, people are worshipful towards anatma. One has the heart set on anatma. One finds all the finite things in the universe as worshipful and lovable, and that's where all the attention goes. But here, Ishvara is put front and center as worthy of worship. Until one knows one is Ishvara, and even otherwise it's worthy of worship, because one is a jnani bhakta. So until one knows this worship is, so therefore upasitavyam should be understood, should be worshipped. Why? Because he enam sarvani bhutani samvanchanti. Samvanchanti means this is the only object of want is to be one with Ishvara. That's the only want. So you begin by worshipping Bhagavan, because the oneness, maybe one is not fully ready and one is still in the process of knowing. And so this is a life of karma yoga, this is a life of bhakti and karma performed with a view to self growth. And so therefore this is worshipped. How? This is worshipped from the standpoint of a jignasu bhakta, the one who wants to know. Because that want here is called samvanchanti sarvani bhutani. All beings want this alone. All beings want oneness with Ishvara. And that oneness, the first step in gaining this oneness is starting with worship as Tadvana, that is the chosen one, that Bhagavan is the most worshipful one, iti. Very beautiful. Because what happens in this worship is that in the worship alone there is a kind of a melting of the ahankara. The ahankara dissolves into the limitless, which is being invoked here as Bhagavan. That's why we have this ingenious way of having, what is that, 108 names, 1008 names, Sahasranama, and 100,008 names. It is endless. Why? Because that which is the object of worship is indeed infinite. That Ishvara is infinite. And if we look closely at the names of Ishvara, Achyutaya Namaha. Achyuta means Chyutihi na vidyate yasya, the one that is not subject to fall. And who is saying this? Achyutaya Namaha, my salutations, my surrender unto the one that is free of falling down in any way. Who is saying this? The miserable jiva who feels fallen, who keeps falling into one scrape, from one scrape to another, who keeps falling into all kinds of unsavory situations. The miserable jiva is saying this. I can't do this. I just, I'm the fallen one. Patita. Patita means fallen. Fallen means what? I have done wrong things. I am hurt. I am guilty. I am not free. I have all these emotions. So I feel like I have fallen in my own eyes, forget Ishvara's eyes. And then I invoke Ishvara as the limitless whole, and then I say Achyutaya Namaha. And who is saying this? The one who is Chuta. The one who is Chuta is saying Achyutaya Namaha. Achyuta prevails, and Chuta is swallowed up in this Nama. Anantaya Namaha. To unto the limitless one, my offering, my namaskars. Who is saying the most? The one who is, fed up with one's own limitations. The one who feels that I am succumbing to so many limitations. I am at I am at the mercy of so many limitations. Body wise limited, mind wise limited, financially of course limited, every which way you go limited, 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 limited. That's why the person has a company, and even that company is called private limited. And so this is the situation. And so the limited one says, I surrender to the limitless. So when the limited surrenders to the limitless, what is left? Limitless. No other room. And so similarly, Om Shivaya Namaha, to the one who is free of Papa and Punya, Namaha. Who is the one who says that? The one who feels completely targeted by Karma Phala. And so this Bhagavan is free of Papa, happens to be limitless. And then in my surrender, I surrender that little being, that complaining individual, subject to Chuti, subject to Papa, subject to Punya, subject to Raga, subject to Dvesha, subject to all kinds of impurities. Impurities gone. Because all the things that I am not, that is what the Ishvara is. I means this miserable Jiva. And in invoking and glorifying this Ishvara, I somehow, that my own glory is included in it without even my knowing it, I have become glorious. Now, I am Tadvana at the end of the Ashtotra. I am Varenya. I am one with this being. And therefore here it says that on the level of Adhibhuta, on the level of transactional world, empirical world, the first step to Brahma Vidya, the first step to prepare for Brahma Vidya is Bhakti. No mukti without Bhakti. This Brahman is known as Ishvara alone. Because that's where the redemption lies from samsara. Because if I just know it is the vacho havak and then pranasya pranaha, nothing is gained. Okay, there is something that's powering my mind. Remember, the question was twofold. At the beginning of the Upanishad, we saw that very clearly. The first part of the question was, Kena eshitam, Kena, willed by whom? Does this, because of whose grace, because of whose presence, does this intended by whom, does the mind fall into thoughts? Do the eyes see? Do the ears hear? Does the prana function? That was the first part of the question. And go back to the first verse again. What was the second part of the question? Kena preshitam. Ishitam and preshitam. Ishitam sadharana, Swarupa Lakshana Brahman. Swarupa Lakshana of Ishvara as Brahman. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Sadharana means common. This Brahman is common. That same Brahman lights up the eyes. The same Brahman lights up the ears. Sadharana, the same light of consciousness. But then when you say Preshitam, directed by whose will, then it is, asadharana, it is Brahman in the form of Ishvara. Tatastha Lakshana of Brahman as Ishvara. Same thing is presented in the Taittiriya Upanishad as well. Swarupa Lakshana Satchidananda Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Tatastha Lakshana Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti yat abhisam vishanti. tad vijijñāsasva tad brahma iti. That causeless cause from which all beings are manifest, and then that causeless cause unto which all beings resolve, and that causeless cause which sustains all beings. Know this to be Brahman. Please inquire into this, the student is told in the Taittiriya Upanishad. And before that we learn that it is this Brahman is Satyam Jnanam Anantam Satchidananda. It is Sat, and it is Sat which is existent, and it's the only source of existence, which is a timeless existence. It is Ananda, it is forever, and it is a sentient, all knowledge existence, which is Chit. This Satchidananda is what is called here as Tadvanam. This Satchidananda is with the ability to direct your karma is called Ishvara. Same thing. And so here it's not enough to say I am Brahman. Swarupa Lakshanataya. If you say because of the Swarupa Lakshana I am one with I am same as Brahman, that's not enough. What is needed is to go a step further and say I am Ishvara, I am one with Ishvara. And so this kind of a worship where the limited jiva, the so-called limited alienated jiva, merges, so to speak, and is subsumed in the limitless, that is the whole point of worship. That's why when you sing bhajans, there is a oneness with the bhajan. When you chant, there is a oneness. When you do puja, there is a oneness. And that oneness prepares you for the knowledge that despite there being so many diversities and differences in the universe, this oneness need not be manufactured. It already is there. It's already experienced as pratibodha viditam matam. This oneness is already experienced as that invariable cognition, in the invariable aspect of every cognition. That which is invariable in every cognition is that oneness alone. It indeed upholds the separation, the as though separation between the knower, known, and means of knowledge without becoming any one of them. And so therefore this kind of a worship prepares the heart for what is to come. And interestingly, that verse is followed by the next verse, where the student suddenly wakes up. We don't know if he was sleeping, we don't know if he didn't understand, but what does he do? He raises his hand and he raises his hand, and what does he say? Upanishadam bho bruhi. Oh revered teacher, teach me the Upanishad. And I tell you, the Vedanta teacher has to be made of strong stuff. You can't afford to get dejected, okay? You can't afford to get dejected. You have to take it in stride. Here the teacher takes it in stride, and the teacher very compassionately says, Ukta te Upanishad. Oh my dear fellow, I have taught you the Upanishad. Brahmim Bhavate Upanishad Brahma. We have taught you the Upanishad that has revealed Brahman. And this is actually a very nice moment, because this is a moment to uplift the heart of all the people studying the Upanishad. Because, the Upanishad herself concedes that everybody may not know it at one go, and it's okay. It's okay. There will be another Upanishad. And even if that is not understood, there will be another life. So long as you are studying, that's all right. The Upanishad seems to concede that there are pains and sorrows and inhibitions that block the receipt of this knowledge, that block the embrace of this knowledge. Childhood pains, unprocessed sorrows, unprocessed core issues. That there are core issues is not an issue. What is at stake here is that they are not healed, they are not processed through therapy, through yoga, through writing it out, through self-enquiry, all these things. These are the ways to process it. through prayer. Because where else to take the pains and sorrows other than to lay it at the feet of Bhagavan? All these are ways to process it. So this unprocessed pain can lead to inhibited knowledge filled with vagueness, error, or simply the person goes to sleep because Vedanta classes are very relaxing, I am told. And so the only way of relaxing we know is to promptly go to sleep. And so, who knows what the student was doing, but the Upanishad here, in giving the example of the student, is designed to boost everybody else's, feeling good about themselves, because at least I understood something. At least I am not raising my hand and saying, please teach me the entire Upanishad. When are you going to teach me the Upanishad? And a charitable reading of the student's question is also that, is there anything more? Because another meaning of the word Upanishad is rahasya, a well kept secret. So perhaps the student, charitably speaking, understood the Upanishad but wants to know if there is something more than that. And the teacher says, no, this is it. But the teacher feels a sense of compassion and a sense of duty towards the student and gives the last verse of the teaching. And of course, not the last verse of the Upanishad, but the last verse of the teaching, which is verse number 32. And what is, 33. Tasya tapodamaha karmeti pratishtha vedaha sarvangani satyam agatanam. So, the Upanishad is like a female body, is like a goddess. She had already appeared as a teacher, as goddess Uma. Here, the Upanishad is a body of a goddess. Tasya, tasyai means for her. Tapodamaha karma iti pratishtha. She is standing on a tripod. This goddess has a triangular pitha. And the three corners of the pitha of this goddess are very much the ingredients of what makes it karma yoga. And what is that? Tapaha, austerities, sadhana, meditation. And then, tapas also is devotion. And then what? Damaha, discipline with regard to the sense organs and organs of action, gaining the adhikaritvam. If dhamma is given, then shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhanam, everything we have to bring in, because what we saw in the first class, because one thing is mentioned, the whole thing comes through. Karma yoga iti pratishtha, that is her base. She is standing on this triangular pitha and on a triangular platform. And then she has many arms and legs, all these things. What are they? Vedas. They are the first portion of the Vedas, which teach you to harness the desires, which teach you dharma, which teach you worship, which teach you devotion. And then, what is she residing in? What is her heart? Her heart is satyam, truth speaking, satya bhashanam here, speaking the truth. That's where she lives. She lives in the heart. The Upanishad goddess visits and resides in the heart that speaks the truth, that leads a life of dharma. Very beautiful. So the teacher does tell a secret. The teacher says how to qualify for this knowledge. And with these august words, the Upanishad ends. Yo vai etam eva veda apahatya papmanam anante swarge loke jyeye pratitishthati. So the one who knows this, having shaken off all papa, lives in Brahman as Brahman, firmly abides in Brahman. Swarga here is right here, right now. Swarga doesn't mean some heaven as away from oneself. so firmly abides in Brahman. If you know this, apahata papmanam means having shaken off papa punya. How do you shake off papa? Because isn't it true that I did some wrong things and then I have to now experience the papa as prarabdha? Well, in the wake of this knowledge, the Mundakopanishad, the promise of the Mundakopanishad is it behooves us to remember. Kshiyante cha asya karmani tasmin drishte paravare. When this lowly fellow, thinking I am so lowly, sees oneself as Ishvara, then all the karmas are gone, because karmas belong to the ignorant one, the sleeping one, the dreaming one, and in the wake of knowledge, the karta is falsified. Brahman is the karta, I am not the karta, where one has understood. So the karma standing in your name is also neutralized, also falsified in the wake of this knowledge. And with the karma gone, with the papa gone, there is no regret, there is no want, there is no guilt, there is no hurt, there is just abidance in one's own glory. So I'll end here, and then we'll save the rest of the time for questions. And if you would like to share any highlights from what you're taking away from this Upanishad, you're welcome to do that as well. We can save a few minutes for that. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Yeah, any questions?
Thank you, Swaminiji, for the wonderful session and class. It's so great.
So glad you were able to.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so glad you were able to take it. I'm very happy you participated.
Om Swaminiji.
Thank you, Swaminiji. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swaminiji.
Thank you, Swaminiji.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Yes, and
Swaminiji, there is a YouTube video. A neurologist did the experiment to prove exactly what the Upanishad is saying. So the Brahman is the moving everything behind it. So if it is okay, I can give the link. That's exactly like
it is. We don't say Brahman is scientific. It's not. If Brahman were to be subject to an experiment, Madhavi, then then that experiment will become Brahman. Correct? Yeah. So. Regardless of what they say, they even measure consciousness and all that. Yeah. So this is very interesting sometimes. Yeah. You may look at it as a nice and entertaining video. Yeah. So there is a long question here. Are you hearing me twice? I'm hearing myself twice. Yeah, why Chitra? Why?
I think somebody's. I will mute everybody.
Yeah. Maybe that will help. Oh yeah, it helped little bit. So here is a question, a very long one. Upon the gain of Atmajnanam, Jiva isn't born. Okay. Part 1. Universe is the projection of Ishvara with Maya power. Ishvara doesn't have Aropa. Okay. Part 2. Karana Sharira is the blueprint for the Jiva that makes samsara progress. Yes. In multiple different pralayas. Sukshma Sharira, Ajnana, Kama, Karma, etc. enlivens the Sthula Sharira. Now here is the confusion. Now, when the ignorance is removed, it nullifies the Sukshma Sharira. So how is this making Karna Sharira being given? How is this making Karana Sharira given away? Sukshma Sharira is the effect, while Karana Sharira is the cause. So how can the effect nullify the cause? It's difficult to comprehend this. Effect doesn't nullify the cause. The cause is Atma Ajnanam. The Karana Sharira is Atma Ajnanam. Okay. So Atma Ajnanam is the Karana Sharira. Atma Ajnanam resolved, the Sthula Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira go back to the elements, and there is no Karana Sharira to come back. Yeah. So you got everything, everything else is correct. No problem. All right. Any other questions? Yeah, can you please teach us this Upanishad in detail? Yes, yes, we can do that. We can start a class and do that, and we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Um, I don't know how to get in touch with you, but what I suppose, if people are interested in the classes, I can give my schedule to the Gurukulam, to Shuddhatma ji, and he can send it out, and then that way you can take the classes when they are offered. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions?
Swaminiji, may I ask a question? Another
Sure.
big question.
Sure.
A simple, stupid, but big question. So
Sure.
when you say, "Are you here?"
Yeah.
It is Atma is a akarta abhokta.
Yeah.
So when you say, "Are you here?" the question is being posed to my body-mind complex. So whether my mind is able to sense that you're asking me, because it's maybe illuminated because of Atma, but the question is to my, I am paying attention to what you're saying, that are you here?
No, the question is to you. The question is not to body, mind, sense complex. The question is to you, and the body, mind, sense, the mind here and Vak are answering that question in a sense, because with the help of that, it is a question that is illumined in the mind, but the mind is not an agent here. The answer is illumined in the mind. I am, in the form of I am. That I am is cognized by the mind and the ahankara, and then it is given a life with the help of Vak. It is a given expression by Vak. Yes, I am here. Because even if you were not to say yes, I am here, you still know you are here. So it's not that the Atma is answering, the ahankara, which has recognized its truth, that it is an existent being, that is what that so therefore the I am merges with the I thought temporarily, and this is illumined in the mind and then expressed by speech.
But is it not the one questioning the ahankara's presence to be acknowledged?
Is it not? Sorry, say that again.
Is it not the question being asked for ahankara to be acknowledged? Like if I'm asleep, my ahankara is resolved. So when you ask a question, I can't hear it, so I can't respond.
Right.
Though Atma is still there, right?
Right. So those are all karanas. Those are all various karanas. Those are instruments to express that which doesn't need any expression, because it is self-evident. For the self-evident I does not need to say I am here. Even if it doesn't say I am here, it is very much here. Because it is here, it can say I am here. The speech can say I am here. Okay?
Okay, Swaminiji, thank you.
All right. Any other thoughts? Questions?
Thank you, Amma. And I think in the last this whole series of talks,
Yeah,
in so much information. I think every time I felt like I was having an aha moment, there was another one, and there was another one, and so I think it's going to take a while to. And I'm glad that we have the tapes available again, the recordings. We need to go through it again, because I think you took us to a whole different level of being or understanding. At least for me, I felt like we're right now studying this Sarvatma Bhava, for instance, and
yeah,
the way you connected Adi Bhuta, Adi Daivika, and Adhyatma was another way to look at the same thing, where
Yes.
consciousness is being um, is the one that enlivens all three of
Yes.
the. So it was interesting. I never made that connection before, and the more I hear their talks, it's like everything is so connected and so beautifully explained.
Yeah.
It becomes much and much more
Yeah.
impressive. So thank you very much for that. It was so makes things so
It's
clearer.
it's all Pujya Swamiji's grace. It's all just wonderful. We just enjoy what is there. That's all there is. And
Thank you.
there is one question. It is not enough to say I'm Brahman. You have to say I'm Ishvara. Can you say a little more? Yes, Brahman is you. Atma and Brahman are synonyms. And when you arrive at that, I am, I am that which is, I'm not just this body, I'm not just this mind, I'm not just the senses, I am the witness, and that witness is described by the Shastra as Satyam Jnanam Anantam. There is a certain what is that, there is a certain clarity, there is a certain resolution of the everyday, what is that, the identifications with the finite. But it is not enough, because the alienation is from the source of the universe as Ishvara. The longing is not directed towards Brahman. The longing is directed towards what you perceive as another conscious entity who is controlling you, who is controlling your fate, who is controlling your destiny. That's where the alienation is. That's where the rub is. And that accounts have to be settled. And that authority issues have to be resolved. One has to, what is that? Discover Ishvara as manifest as the whole universe being sacred. And besides, the only kind of Brahman available to you is as Ishvara. There is no pure Brahman available anywhere. If you say, I'm going to wait till Pralaya to get this knowledge, there will be no teacher, there will be no you. They will, how are you going to do this? So right now it is only Ishvara alone is there. So that's what I mean. And then another very interesting question: how can we be less like Agni and Vayu and more like Indra? Pray, because that's what Indra did in the same place where where the Yaksha disappeared. He tried to give Yaksha a hug, and Yaksha disappeared. He tried to grasp Yaksha, and then he sat and surrendered. So surrender the desire to hold on to it as an object. Keep studying, be worshipful, as we studied in the last chapter, and be prayerful. Definitely someone who has so much jignasa as you is certain to gain this knowledge. Okay. All right. Does prarabdha karma get dissolved since the body is yes, yes. We have to say yes, because the Mundakopanishad says kshiyante cha asya karmani. More than two karmas means plural. So at least more than two karmas should be there, and so therefore what? Kshiyante cha asya karmani means all the karmas. The prarabdha karma is there for the body, but the person has disidentified with the body since gaining the knowledge, and so you cannot say that the jnani is subject to prarabdha. The other people may see the jnani having a heart attack, the jnani's body aging, the jnani is limping, the jnani sitting in a what's its name, in a wheelchair. All these things, one may see. And for the other people, they say, oh, because of his or her prarabdha, the jnani has to endure all this. But from the jnani's own standpoint, this may as well be somebody else's body. This may as well be somebody else's body. And if there is pain, there is some if there is some upaya, they will take some pill or something. If not, they will endure. But they don't think of themselves as having a body. So for the jnani, there is no prarabdha. That's a very important question. Very nice. Okay? Anything else? All right. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritangamaya, Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति शांति शांतिः हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम. A big applause to Chitra for and Sahadev, who is not here because it's still very early in the west coast. So a big clap to both of them. A big shout out for their lending their wonderful voices and filling up this atmosphere with the sacred chants, so that everybody, we could all just listen very nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swamini ji.
Om, take care. Be well.
Namaste, Swamini.
Namaskar.
Om Hari Om.
Om, Harihi Om.